Good morning, it's Dawn Swaz, and this is Roar, the sound of my own voice. You know what? I've been recording on Mondays and releasing on Mondays, but I think I'm going to expand that actually to Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays because I have so much to say and I want to say it and I don't want to hold myself back and stop any momentum. So hopefully join me Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for Roar, the sound of my own voice. You know what I want to talk about today, though? I want to talk about how beautiful this morning is. I am in Switzerland right now, Zurich, Switzerland, and I'm looking outside. It is sunny. It is fresh outside. I just sat outside on my balcony for a good half hour and took in a few deep breaths. And I just took in the day. And if you haven't stopped to do that and just give yourself life without, rushing into your task for the day, go ahead tomorrow and try that. When you wake up in the morning, if you have to wake up 30 minutes earlier to do it, then just do it because it makes a huge difference for your day. Wake up in the morning, go outside, take a few deep breaths, clear your mind, and just relax. Because you know what? When you are rested and when you're at peace, you are much more efficient in your work and you are much more calm, and then your spirits are higher. And so just do that for me. And then we're going to talk about meditation in another episode. But you know what? Just take a couple deep breaths next time and tomorrow in the morning. Get yourself calmed down, maybe reflect on what you've been thinking the day before. Think, ahead what you want to achieve in this day that hasn't got anything to do with material things, but just for your own inner peace. And by the way, with that, there's an episode called Guard Your Peace. Check that episode out. It is good. It was a thought that I had to myself. It was an epiphany I had for my own life, and it's good. It's really, really good. So anyway, take time for yourself. That's the point of that. Talking about Black Lives Matter today. And, I have been here in Switzerland. Like I said, I live in Switzerland almost 12 years now. My goodness. But I've been here in Switzerland watching the whole Black Lives Matter movement. And watching the whole thing from a distance, I assure you, is very different to being fully entrenched in it. And it's not that I don't know what it's about, because in fact, my cousin was killed by police back in '98, and we had to protest for some time just to get the police officers suspended, just to get an investigation, and just to get a trial, which ended up favorably. But you know what? A trial and suspension does not bring your family member back. So point being, I understand the process. I understand the struggle. I understand the battle. And it's not new for me. In fact, for any Black person, you know what? If you're not a Black person and you know one, just know this. For any Black person living in America, this whole BLM situation is not new. This whole BLM situation is something that we have lived our entire lives in one way, shape, or form or another. And, the thing is, my experience with the police has actually been quite positive. I've never had any bad experience with the police personally. I've never been into that kind of trouble or in a situation, thank God, that I've had to worry. However, actually, you know what? That's because, let me back up and explain why, actually. I want to say that's because I've always lived in predominantly white communities. That's actually and I'm just noticing that. That's actually the pattern I see. So I've lived in, Colorado, very, very Caucasian. Denver, Colorado. I've lived in Davis, California, which is so peaceful. Oh my gosh, if you haven't been there, go. Davis, California, San Diego. Living in, University City. And I've always lived in predominantly white neighborhoods. I lived in Beverly Hills, which was great as well. So I've always lived in predominantly white neighborhoods. Therefore, if they did see me and the way I dress, the way I speak, they never thought twice to give me a hard time. And I feel super grateful that I've always been in that kind of situation, because that is not necessarily what you can expect being Black in the United States of America. And so, another side note, For anyone who's not African American listening to this podcast, go watch that video by Childish Gambino, This is America. That just came to my mind. You know what? I actually did a talk at Shandon in Argentina. They wanted to know about Black culture, and that was so interesting. So Diego invited me to talk to the English-speaking class at Shandon, and I talked to them about the Black experience, and I played that video, and they were just completely shocked and mortified. But it's true. That's our experience. Moving on. So, this experience for Black people in America is not new. Not for 1 second. And even if, for example, like myself, you don't come into contact with a horrible police officer who has no regard for your life, you still always have that thought in the back of your mind, like, what if? What if this person is on a mission to prove himself or prove a point? Am I going to be safe? And so that's something that you always have in the back of your mind as a Black person. And, it's just a horrible feeling. And, it need not persist. But the thing I wanted to bring up in terms of Black Lives Matter and watching it from a distance is, I have to say that we are giving too much power to the press. We are giving too much attention to the media. And we're putting too much faith, actually, in the media to be a help to the movement. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why the international perspective is so important and how we can learn from other countries to kind of move forward with this whole BLM movement. When Donald Trump says fake news, and, I'm not siding with Donald Trump, so don't even go there, but I'm not siding with him. However, when Donald Trump says, fake news, he has a kind of gripe against the media, and it is not displaced. The media is here to prey on your fears. The media is here to live off of your anxiety. And when they make the most money, that usually is surrounding some tragedy or something that you need to be anxious about. Coronavirus, mass murders, BLM, as long as they can keep you anxious and watching, they are making money. So what is their goal? To keep you anxious and watching. Good news is not going to keep you watching. Therefore, they are not invested in it. They are invested in keeping eyeballs on the TV and selling those advertising spaces to large corporations who, ultimately benefit off of the despair and the misfortune of a lot of people in the country. And that's unfortunate. But yeah, so when it comes to looking to the media to report what's going on, to open people's eyes and to bring the BLM movement forward, we need to stop doing that because you know what? It's not doing that. We have so many tools out here. So we have, Facebook, we have YouTube, we have LinkedIn. We have a lot of different tools now that don't require us to go to the media and get exposure through the official, U.S. media. We have a lot of ways to expose the situation that's happened. And what the U.S. media is doing essentially is they're causing actually the sensationalization of this whole matter. They're causing it to actually be worse. They're perpetuating a problem that is already horrific. And how are they doing that? So I'm going to compare the Swiss media to the US media just to give you an illustration and kind of put it in your mind. And actually, I'm going to put some links in the description to really put it in your eyes how the US media is a business and profits off of your misfortune compared to in other countries. So I'm going to put a link in the description of the Swiss media. When it comes to violent acts, when it comes to tragedy in Switzerland, when it comes to these negative stories in Switzerland, the news is pretty boring, actually. Entertainment in Switzerland is actually pretty boring in general. But anyway, the news is pretty boring, and I love it because the news is not meant to be entertaining. There should be a separation between entertainment and the news. News is supposed to be purely information, and I'll tell you why. In Switzerland, the policy is that when tragedy happens, you do not advertise that because why? When you advertise tragedy, it is an incentive for the people committing those crimes and the people who are responsible for those tragedies to do more of it. And you might encourage, and often you do encourage, as we see in the US, you do encourage people who may have thought about doing it but didn't have the guts, or had thought about doing it but didn't have incentive enough. You encourage those people with an incentive, getting on the news and being famous and being popular and being known and written down in history for the evil acts you've done. You give them an incentive to go through with their plans, And when we look at the mass murders, for example, it's a great example. You don't have these kinds of mass murders going on around other countries because it's not sensationalized. And of course it has happened, but when it happens, there's a big public outcry and there are laws that are changed and there are measures that are taken. And it's not something that people kind of just are fake outraged about for a day and then move on in their daily lives as if nothing happened because it's just another mass shooting. It doesn't happen in other countries. And so if we get out of our bubble of the US and how things operate in the US, you will see that this kind of news reporting, this kind of sensationalization of tragedy is not helping us. So when I look at the BLM movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, and I look at what's happening, I see clearly from a distance that when it began, with George Floyd, and it didn't begin there, but when the protests, let's say, began with that situation happening, there was a huge outcry. There were lots of protests and people took to the streets. And of course, the media focused on that. But somehow, and I don't know if you noticed, have you noticed this? Somehow the focus has migrated from the protests and the positive forward movement of Black America. It switched from that to focusing on and putting a close angle lens on how the police is mishandling, mistreating, and killing more Black people. Now, what does that do to the US that's already polarized and pitted against each other? What does that do? That creates further division. You know why? Because the protests and the positive movement forward of the Black community, just by watching, the protests, it's not interesting, let's say. And I'm not saying to me, but it's not interesting to the majority of America. I mean, it's not interesting to white America in that Bible Belt who couldn't really care less if Black America moves forward. And actually, in a lot of cases, they're not looking for you. They're not checking for you moving forward because they feel like if Black people move forward, then their livelihood, their progress, their fortune is in jeopardy, which is kind of funny considering that actually a lot of people in that space are not doing so well themselves. But anyway, what is interesting to people in those areas, what does sell more ad space, is talking about how Black people are being mistreated, killed, savaged, ravaged, and that is what gets the media more eyeballs, because you do have a lot of racists, as we all know, you do have a lot of racists in the United States who are saying, good, put them back in their place. If you look at the South, people who are protesting and fighting for the Confederate statues and the Confederate named buildings, all those things, those people are feeding into the advertising dollars of the media. And so, yeah, we got to get their attention. We can't be showing Black progress if you want to get their attention and their dollars. So let's focus on the part of the matter, the part of the subject that actually does bring eyeballs and does bring more attention. And so it brings the attention of these racists that are the base of Trump, the Trump majority. And it also does get the attention of people who are the victims of these activities. And so, it's interesting how first the focus was on, the rallies, the protests, the progress, and in a sneaky, very sneaky way, we're on the same topic, right? right? Don't take your eye away from the glitter and the flashing lights. We are on the same subject, right? But somehow it just kind of shifts ever so slightly to the negative side of what's going on. And you have to look at it and you have to say why. And you have to say, is this actually serving what we are doing right now in the United States of America for us Black people? And then when we talk about Black people, if they're ever so slightly shifting the focus, it's first Black people, and then, then it's Hispanic people, and then it's, any other people of color. And so you have to be careful about what you allow and what you put your focus on. So, for example, a lot of people, when these news articles come out and when these stories come out about another Black person being shot and killed and disrespected and mishandled by the police, we're outraged. We share it. We give energy to it. And where your focus goes, your energy flows. When you put the focus on it and when you put your energy into it, then you by default make more progress, or you give more energy and you give more momentum actually to the problem. And I know you're not going to see this at first, so I want you to listen to this episode maybe a couple times, and I want you to get it, because what I'm saying you can see in your own personal life when it comes to things that are not as polarizing and as dramatic or impactful in your life. So let me break this down in a way that you might understand for you parents out there. If you ever have issues with your kids and you're yelling at them and you're chastising your children, the more you scream at them about the problems, the more you see problems. And maybe you need to try this out, because this has worked miracles in my life. Amen. Hallelujah. The more you put energy into focusing on what your kids are not doing, what is not doing right, the more they do stuff that's not right. It's so irritating because you're so mad. You're just like, stop being a little cost. Stop being a hassle of a child. Please fall in line, But, and this is part of parenting studies, by the way, this is not, and teachers will probably know what I'm talking about, or definitely know what I'm talking about. If you put energy into positive reinforcement and praising the kids for doing the right things, and you put the focus on what you want them to do, it's interesting how they actually go out of their way to do the right things. Everybody wants validation. Everybody wants praise. Everyone wants to be seen and recognized and heard, and they want those accolades. That is why a lot of times, these tragedy happens, because even though a white teenager is killing a Black man, and that might be negative for you, on the flip side, they are getting praise and recognition for their deeds from another side. So everybody wants praise. Everyone wants the positive reinforcement. Everybody wants to be heard and recognized and seen. And so you have to recognize that whatever way you're giving energy, whether it's the positive side or the negative side, that is having an effect on what comes thereafter. So as we pass around these articles about Jacob Blake, about George Floyd, about all of these things that are not serving our community in a positive way, as we are, putting these notices out about the, barbecue Beckys and the Karens out there, as we're putting those messages out, you see more of it happen. And that is not a coincidence. I want you to get this in your head. It's not a coincidence that we see more of the things that we don't like when we put more energy towards them. So what does that mean for what we need to do next? Okay. What does that mean for what we want to see next? That means that we have to demand a shift in the positive direction of the news that we're seeing. What does that mean? You cannot sit here and share the news about another Black killing again. I want you to sit there and I want you to promise me one thing. If you don't do anything else, commit to not perpetuating the news of the killing or mishandling of another Black person, please. Don't do it. What you're thinking right now, though, is, François, if I don't share the news, it's not getting out there. Okay, I understand your perspective and I understand that thought. But why does it need to be out there? And this is another thing. We think that getting it out there makes people care, but we see photos, coming out these days from the 50s. Forget 2020. Erase that from your mind. Go back to the 50s when there are protests, right? Go back to the 50s when they were writing, "Stop killing us," right? This has been going on for more than 70 years because it was happening before the 50s. It wasn't new when they saw it then. It's not new when they see it now. It's not that people don't have the information. So let's just dispel that myth. It's not that people don't have the information. That's not the problem. People know. They might not understand, but they also haven't made it their business to understand. And even when they understand, what changes are we actually seeing happen, right? It's not that the information needs to be out there. It's that they need to feel the pressure of the information being out there. And that can come from many different directions. It doesn't necessarily have to come by sharing articles with your Black friends and family, right? Because Black people already know this. You're preaching to the choir when you're sending another article about another Black person being mistreated, mishandled. It's not that we need to preach to the choir. It's not that we need to make people understand that have no interest in bringing us forward. It's that we need to apply economic pressure to the powers that be to get results. And Black dollars there's strength in Black dollars. There's power. Because we've seen when something has happened, for example, with the H&M monkey, right? We've seen when we apply the pressure, there is a response. So let's just skip past all of the popularization of more Black murders and get straight to the path of making a difference in terms of what is happening in corporate America, because really it comes down to that. The media is only responding actually to the corporate dollars that are being spent with them. So when we apply pressure to the powers that be, which are all the people who hold the dollars actually, when we apply pressure in many ways to them, then changes have to be made. They don't have a choice, because when they don't have your dollars, they don't have a salary. When they don't have a salary, they don't have the power. And so we have to put more energy and more focus on applying pressure to the corporations and the powers that be who have the dollars to make change and demand change. How do we do that? That's the most interesting question, right? So how do we actually do that? The answer in my mind to that is Black unity. And we are doing a great job. I want to give us a round of applause for that. The Black community has been pitted against each other, just like the United States of America right now today is being pitted against each other. Republicans against Democrats, progressives against conservatives. It's always an us against them battle. And Black people have been pitted against each other for how long? How long? And the thing is, as long as we are pitted against each other, we are a tool. We are a tool that corporations can use. We are a tool that politicians can use to drive their own personal agendas. But as Malcolm X said, and as Farrakhan has said, they don't want us to come together. They do not want us to come together, because when there is Black unity, just like when you see in the Asian communities, just like when you see in the Jewish communities, when there is unity in a community, just like the LGBTQ community, you see progress happening in those communities. Why? Because don't come for a gay, lesbian, transsexual, whatever. Don't come for those communities, because there will be consequences. And you know why? It's because they band together and they work towards a common agenda that helps them see progress. You don't see them, sensationalizing the news. So, for example, when Kevin Hart, when those comments arose about Kevin Hart saying those anti-gay and and queer comments back in the day, you didn't see them focusing on, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that. Oh my gosh, I can't believe he thought like that. I can't believe the kind of person he is. No, they demanded action. They went straight to, you said that, we demand an apology. We demand that you be taken off of the program for the Oscars. We demand that you be put to the side. We don't stand for this. We don't tolerate this. We want to see action. We don't care about what happened and boosting him up in the media because he said this or whatever, because if there was no consequence and they didn't demand action, then he could have used that whole outrage for his benefit. Actually, he could have been like, yeah, I said it and I meant it. And he could have gone on a whole press run talking about, how people need to not be so sensitive and blah, blah, blah. He could have used it to his advantage if there was no demand for action on the part of the organization that was running the show. But because people in that community band together, because they demand results and they get results, people do not mess with them and they're making progress like never before. These issues don't come up in the Jewish community. It's not just because they own Hollywood, even though they do. And that's a way of banding together, by the way. It's because when there are issues that come up, anti-Semitic issues that come up, you know what? They squash that immediately. They have a control on their community. They band together. They come together, and together as a unit, one sound, one voice, you see results. So what I'm saying is, it's not to ignore. I'm not saying for 1 second to ignore what's going on. That is what I'm not saying for sure. I'm not saying ignore what's going on. I'm saying put our energy in the right place to see results. You know why all of a sudden we see so many taboo faux pas things going on in the fashion world, where you see these monkeys and these quotes and all this kind of stuff? You know why? As a marketer, as an international business marketer, I overstand it. I understand what is going on there. It's not because there weren't people at the table and people in the room didn't understand the consequences of their actions. It's not because of that. It's because they absolutely understood what was going to happen. They knew there was going to be Black outrage. They knew that there was going to be big news behind it, and the benefits to their brand, even though there might be a short-term disadvantage, even though there might be a little sacrifice in there for a couple of weeks or a couple of days, they knew that the press that they would get from that racist faux pas or whatever would in the long term benefit them. That is not a mistake. Do not let people fool you. Do not let them sit there and pretend like they are so unintelligent, like they don't see what's going on with BLM in the media. All of these corporations, they very well know what they are doing. So do not give them a pass of ignorance. Do not be like, oh, they don't know. There are no Black people in the room. They know. They know. I will say it again. They know. Do not let them get over on you talking about, oh, diversity and inclusion. Yes, we need diversity and inclusion, but we also need to see how we are being played on a daily basis, okay? We are being used against ourselves to further an agenda that does not benefit our communities. And so how do we get further? How do we go ahead? Let me just wrap it up. Number one, we do not play in to sensationalizing and promoting and distributing the content that is not serving our community. Yes, we acknowledge the men and women who have died and been mistreated by the police. Yes, we do that, but we do that by demanding changes and sensationalizing the news that is focused on the positive forward movement of our people. Okay, let me repeat that. Yes, we acknowledge what happens, but not in a way that glorifies from the other side the actions of the police and the white supremacists out there, but rather we focus on the results we want to see in this matter. We will not, I want you to say it with me, I will not popularize, distribute any media that does not serve my community. I want you to say it. I want you to do it. I want you to pass this podcast on to someone who is Black and needs to hear this, because we are doing ourselves a disservice by distributing and popularizing media that does not serve us. It is time to serve ourselves. Okay. Number two, we are going to ban together. Okay, we are going to band together to make sure that we are one sound, one voice, making progress in a way that serves our community and brings us together in a way that we actually don't even need to depend on another community out there. We have enough resources and we damn sure have enough intelligence to drive our own community forward without looking to someone who is not incentivized and not encouraged to see us move forward. Okay. And number 3, don't give people a pass. Do not give the media a pass. Do not give corporations a pass. They know what they are doing. I guarantee you, as I'm sitting here right now, people know what they are doing and they are using our division against us to keep us where we are. And it's actually, you know what? I'm going to take that back. It's not so much to keep us where we are, but it's rather to get themselves ahead, which is the same result, but just, a different result from different eyes. So do not give people a pass and say, oh, they don't know. Let's go ahead and educate them. Let's help them understand. They understand. And if they don't understand, I'm gonna leave you with this. If they don't understand after having protests for how long since before the 50s, if they don't understand right now, it's a choice. It's because they refuse to be concerned. Okay? Don't hit me with that. Oh, I didn't know. You didn't know. You chose to not know because there have been enough cases. There have been enough Black men in jail and Black single mothers out there struggling for you to take a second to care and to know and to understand. But guess what? It hasn't been your problem. Therefore, it's not a problem. So don't hit me with the I don't know. You don't care. Next. So what I want you to do, I want you to pass this podcast along to everyone you know in the Black community. I want you to post it in your groups, whatever Facebook groups you're in. I want you to post it on your page. I want you to distribute this podcast just like you distribute any other horrific, heinous news you see out there, because we need to come to an understanding, y'all. It is time. Time is up. We are past the moment where we are asking for, cooperation. We are past the moment where we are asking for understanding. We are past the moment where we are going to just sit back and accept any old thing because we are too good. We are too strong. And you know what? I'm not a fan of the BLM hashtag because it's too diminutive. It's too little. It's too weak, in my opinion, but I'm going to go with it. I would, however, say my Black life does not just matter. My Black life is powerful. My Black life is powerful. My Black life is significant. My Black life is important. My Black life is awesome. You know what? It doesn't just matter. What the hell? Paying your light bill matters. No, my Black life is awesome. So think like that and remember that Black lives are worthy. Black lives are powerful. Black lives are awesome. Black lives are impactful. Black lives make a difference. Let's get in the mindset of being worth everything that we want and let's move like it. Let's make our words into actions and move like it. I hope you enjoyed that podcast. I hope it brought value to you. Like I said, pass this on because we all need to hear this. We all need to understand this. And it is so important that I can't overstate how much we need to understand this message for our community and move forward with a purpose, like we know we are worthy of everything that we want and that we are worthy of all of the progress we want to see. I wish you an awesome and amazing blessed day. Go out there and make it count and treat this day like it is the most important day of your life because it's the only day that you have. Wishing you guys a blessed one. Go love on somebody. Bye.